Hi, I'm Alex Mitchell and I'm the creator of Cancer Stories. Cancer Stories is a video diary program which is designed to help people like yourself manage their cancer. And the key aim is to record previous patients' experiences, really a wide variety of cancers. And these are patients who are genuine, real patients from Leicestershire who've given their consent to allow us to record their story onto DVD or the internet. What we ask those patients is really to give a brief account over 30 or 60 minutes. How did they manage with their diagnosis? And hopefully by watching their account you'll be able to pick out some common themes from one or more of those videos. And those common themes might be things like what resources are available locally or nationally, or how do families cope, or how do people themselves manage with those awkward stages, either the initial diagnosis or the complications of treatment, or perhaps psychological and emotional complications which are sometimes overlooked. So overall, we hope that by watching the video diary program you'll be able to take some positives from other people's accounts, and hopefully that will help you better cope with your situation, whatever that is at the current time. Thanks for watching.
My name is Judith Newton. I've just turned 70 years old. I grew up in a town called Referral in Northamptonshire with my parents and a younger brother who's 3.5 years younger. At the age of 18, I left home to go and work in London, where I stayed for about 10 years. During that time, my parents moved to a little village called Barton in Northamptonshire, and after 10 years of being in London, I married and came to Leicester where my husband lived. 3 years after our marriage, we had a daughter called Sarah, who now also lives in London and is 39. 5 years ago, I was going to the dentist because I was having problems with my top plate. It wasn't fitting properly. The dentist kept altering it almost on a weekly basis, and each time I went back it was not fitting. He was very puzzled, and so was I. He could not understand what was going on. For some months I'd had an ulcer on the top gum, which wasn't really much of a problem, but it just wouldn't go away. There came a point when this ulcer started to change in its appearance and texture and started to move, and my dentist was very puzzled and realised something was very wrong and referred me to the hospital.
Judith Newton is coming today, and Judith, thanks for coming to join us here in the Cancer Stories video program. I'm not sure how much you know about this, but basically this is an opportunity to tell other people watching this afresh about your experience with your diagnosis and anything that you've learnt along the way that might be useful for other people to hear. And you and I have only met today, so it's useful for me also to hear your story of what you've been through. And I heard you in the biography at the beginning there say how your cancer was diagnosed. So you went to the dentist initially, is that right?
That's right.
And what? How far did the dentist get with their investigations? Did they just refer you straight to the hospital when they thought something wasn't quite right?
Yes, that's more or less how it worked. He'd been seeing me for some time with the ulcer being there.
Yeah.
But he obviously realised something was very wrong when it started to move and change shape.
And who did you go and see in the hospital?
Well, after I in the preliminary stages, I saw a registrar who then brought in Mr. Hayter because he was so sure it was a tumour. That's all I'm trying to say. I'm afraid my brain isn't very good. He was afraid it was a tumour, and Mr. Hayter came in and got a bit of background from me, and he also admitted straight away that he thought it was a tumour. So I was very quickly put on the path of having various tests done.
Would you prefer that somebody said straight out, you know, we're quite worried about this abnormality, it could be a tumour, it could be a cancer? Or do you think that the medical staff should really wait till they're certain before saying what they feel?
I must admit it's a terrible shock to my system. My mother had face cancer, battled with different types of face cancer for 25 years. And it had never occurred to me that it might happen to me. She was such an unusual case. And when I saw the dentist, and he was obviously concerned that there was something going on, I said, do you think there's any chance it could be cancer? And he said, don't even think about it until you know. Which, to be perfectly honest, was a very wise thing to say. It stopped me worrying for 2 weeks before I was told almost certainly that it was cancer. I think with hindsight, although it was a terrible shock to my system, I'm glad that I knew the enormity of what I was to face.
And did you really know then? Because often people say they didn't anticipate what was to come regarding the treatments, the surgery and the follow-up.
Well, I didn't know exactly, but I had a very good idea that it would be a traumatic operation, and probably I told straight away it could be, well, quite early on anyways, it could be 2 years before I was over the treatment and getting back to a normal life. So I effectively just put my life on hold. In my own mind, I thought, right, I've got 2 years, it's not going to be easy. I've got to just be careful what I do for the next 2 years before I can get my life really back on track again.
How was life going for you at that point, just prior to the diagnosis?
Much as it had been for years, really. I've had ME for 40 odd years. Fortunately, I'm not nearly as bad as some people are with it.
That's chronic fatigue syndrome, isn't it?
It is, yes. But I do get very tired. I do get other symptoms which make me feel very unwell at times. And pain, I get have mobility problems which vary. But I have been used to this and had learned to take things more or less on a day-to-day basis, not planning too much ahead. But obviously the enormity of having to face cancer was quite a traumatic blow on top of everything else.
I think you went on to have at least 2 major operations.
I did.
How did you find they went?
Well, I was just prepared in my mind to take not rush things. You can't rush these things, you just have to let things go from day to day. Try and hang on to the positive things, and really just be thankful. In my case, I had a very supportive family and friends.
Do you want to tell us about your family situation at that time?
At the time, my daughter was, as now, living in London, and had been for some years. I came home from my first operation on Christmas Eve, which in itself was quite traumatic. When everybody else is trying to get home to celebrate Christmas. And I was just about well enough to be allowed to come home. My husband had absolutely no idea how to cook. He could do scrambled egg and a boiled egg, and that was about it. Make tea, coffee, that was about it. My daughter, fortunately, works for herself, so she was able to take a fortnight off and get the cooking under control, get plenty of food in the freezer for me. Admittedly, I wasn't on solid food when I came home, but she took it stage by stage and put appropriate things in the freezer for me, so it made it much easier for my husband to deal with.
It sounds like you were quite independent prior to going into hospital.
Yes, I had.
And suddenly you had to accept the care from your family.
Absolutely, yes.
That couldn't have been easy.
No, very difficult. I've been independent, I think, in as much. Probably one thing that I was dependent on other people for was getting from A to B, needing a lift. I could use a bus most of the time, but not able to walk great distances.
I see.
But apart from that, I like to be very independent. So it was difficult, but it's something I had to accept.
Tell us about the operations and how long it took to recover after those. Yeah. How long does it take to recover? Well, I suppose the first 6 months are obviously most difficult. And I slowly, after the first operation, I slowly got back on to start with, I was on bottled food. Then slowly I got on to more normal food, which was purified completely. And little by little I started to eat food with a bit more texture. And by the end of the first year, I was able to go out, join in the same social activities that I've been going to, eat most of the same food. In some cases it just had to be adapted slightly for me to be able to eat. But in most cases, with extra sauce and just avoiding things that I really couldn't eat, I managed to
socialise and eat along with everybody else.
Because I think one thing that's easy to forget is a lot of social activities take place around eating, don't they? Both in the house and with friends, in restaurants and that kind of thing. If you've got a condition which impairs your eating, either via appetite or via the ability to chew or swallow, it can interfere with your social life as well.
Well, this is something I found after the second operation. I had another tumour which was became obvious that I was needing an operation last August. And it was under my lower left jaw. And it wasn't obvious like the first one was. It was well hidden. But I ended up having the left jaw removed, and they weren't able to put any bone in its in the place of the bone being taken away, because I've previously had because I've had radiotherapy.
I follow you.
So anyway, they took flesh from under my left breast to put into the place of the bone they'd taken away and the flesh. But as there's no bone, it means the movement of the right side of my jaw is not stable, shall we say. So it makes it very difficult to chew, and I suppose because of the fact that so much bone has been taken away, it's not easy to swallow. So I have now got more problems with eating. I'm still on a very liquid diet. I'm slowly trying to eat things with a bit more texture to it. But I was told 6 or 9 months ago that it wasn't likely to improve that much. So I'm very realistic about it. I just keep on trying, but at the same time I have a realistic approach to it.
Was the second cancer related to the first one, as far as you know?
Not that I know of. It was a similar type of cancer, but they were never able to tell me precisely whether it was the same or not. They think it was very similar, though.
Okay. Now, you had 2 big reasons, the 2 cancers and the 2 surgeries, to have an effect on your daily life.
Yes.
And one of those big effects is in your eating. I totally appreciate that. How else did the cancer affect you as a person?
Well, in the initial, in the first few months, obviously, you're very limited to what you can do. First, after the first operation, they used my arm to take bone to put in the roof of my mouth. I had most of the roof of my mouth taken away, plus a slice out of my nose and half my top lip. So they replaced the bone in the top of my mouth with bone from my arm, and they took a big chunk of flesh from the arm to put over the bone to fill the hole at the top of my mouth. So when I came out of hospital, I had my arm in a cast, and so that was out of action for several weeks. So I wasn't able to bath or shower or do anything like that myself. I needed a lot of help and couldn't really do much quite apart from the fact that I didn't have much energy. It was just another thing which made things difficult. But it was certainly much better once my arm was out of its cast and slowly got strength back into it.
When you've had a big procedure and then you've got something very definitive holding you back, when that's suddenly corrected, it's almost a big relief, even though you've still got a long way to go.
Oh, yes. Yes, because I had, although my arm was very weak, at least it was free and I had got a bit of movement in it. So slowly I was able to build up the strength and get back to some sort of normality.
Now, I know people will be interested watching this, how much you were able to get back to normal, because it strikes me, just meeting you earlier, that you're very independent again.
I'm fairly independent. I'm hoping to get more independent. I found that well, my arm, it's 5 years now since my arm was in a cast, and that now is it's not 100%. It's not quite as strong as it was, but it's not bad. I use it all, every day, and don't even think about it. I just use it as a normal arm.
I'm just curious to how much independence you regained, really, after all these setbacks. And I'm quite surprised, meeting you earlier, that you seem to be almost totally independent to me.
Well, I can do those things. I'm not, in addition to having these operations, I lost my husband 3 months ago. And since then, well, since she was first ill, 2 months earlier, I've been help in the home. So a lady comes to clean once a fortnight. I don't make too much mess on my own. And I have somebody to cut the lawn, so I don't, because that's a job my husband did. I've got a very good friend who helps me with shopping. So in one sense I am a lot more independent, but I'm also getting a lot of help.
You are, but maybe they're for the, let's say, bigger things that many people struggle with.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're right.
It seems to me that there are many things you're still able to do.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, I live on my own, and I don't have anybody coming in on a daily basis to help me. I manage all that perfectly well on my own.
The challenge is, when you're recovering, is to start to do normal, healthy, everyday things like hobbies and interests. Were you able to restart doing those?
Yes. I've taken up hobbies which have probably been put on hold for a long time. I've taken up making necklaces, which is very therapeutic, especially if you do it in, I've been doing it with other people at a community centre, Law Centre, and I found it enormously therapeutic. I've also taken up pastel drawing, which again I'm greatly enjoying. And those are the two main things.
So you've taken up those hobbies since the diagnosis? Recently?
Yes.
That's a big positive for other people to hear.
Yes.
One can develop new interests.
Oh, yes.
Sometimes there's a tendency when you've been unwell and your function isn't 100% to focus on what you can't do. It's a natural thing, isn't it? To say, oh, I can't do all those things I like to do in the past. But
you have to focus on what you can do.
Exactly. It's helpful to focus on what you can do.
Absolutely.
And maybe look at new things if you feel stuck.
yes.
So do I take it then that you're going out regularly still from the house and doing...
Definitely, yes.
Meeting other people?
Yes, definitely. I made a point of it. Since my husband died, I've been making a very great point of trying to find things every day to get me out of the house, if only for a couple of hours. And I'm very fortunate. I live in an area where there are quite a few group activities, which I'm slowly getting into. And I know that when certain things fall by the way, and probably have less hospital appointments, I'll have other things to do to take their place, because I've already looked out for that.
What's your view of group type of work? Is it something you've benefited from?
Very much so. Yes, it's definitely a help to get out and be with other people. It takes you out of yourself. You need other people to talk to, just to socialise with, even if it's just on a, you know, if you're only chatting.
Is it a cancer support group or general group?
The day centre I've been going to is a cancer day centre, and people might think it's very morbid, but it's not in the least. The staff are very jolly and very caring people, and so are the volunteers. And although we've all got our problems, we don't dwell on it. We have a very happy time. And those who want to can enjoy various activities. For some reason, it's nearly always the ladies that get involved in the practical hobbies. Men usually like to just sit and talk.
Have you made new friends since going there?
Oh, yes. Yes, we're all very friendly together. That's what's so nice about it.
But are they the kind of contacts you'd meet outside of the group?
Probably not. No, probably not. But we've all enjoyed each other's company greatly, and we've all benefited from it. And when we get to the point where we're getting well enough to go do without it, we're all very sorry.
You miss it when it's not there.
Yes. But luckily I have got things in place to take over. Other groups that I'll go to. Not cancer groups, just ordinary craft groups, social groups, which don't involve food. See, this is another thing I've had to find. I've had to find my whole, practically the whole of my social life revolved around speakers and food, and now I can't do that nearly so well.
That's a very good point.
But again, don't be defeated, because slowly I'm finding that by going to, I've been to food pubs with friends and family, and you might only find one thing on the list that you can possibly eat. If you mention it to the waitress or chef, or get the word through to the chef that you need it to be like a soup, as I do in my case, they are more than willing to do that for you. If it comes to you not quite slack enough, I say it's lovely, but please can you make it just like soup? Put creme fraiche in it, stock, cream, anything. Just to loosen it up.
So you give them the clear instructions of what to do for you. You're proactive in that regard.
Yes.
And that's a fantastic tip about asking for what you need.
Yes.
Rather than being embarrassed by it.
Don't be embarrassed about it. The staff have always been fantastic, and the chefs have always been very obliging. And certainly when you've been once, you only have to say, well, the chef looked after me last time, and you know that you'll be all right.
That's it.
And I've found, restaurants, both of them I've had Italian food at, And I think in my circumstances, that's probably the easiest. The saying, yes, pass the dishes. If you can't eat it as it comes from the kitchen, the chef, if you ask them nicely, will oblige.
So one thing people always want to know is about how people cope and how did they get through it. And sometimes that's about what coping style you had, and sometimes about coping resources, and sometimes help from others. But in terms of coping style, what do you think helped you get through this?
Just seeing the funny side of the situation. I find that's a big help. And it's something I learnt from my mother many years ago. My mother had face cancer problems. She had no nose for about 14 years. A prosthetic nose had been made from the cast taken of my face. And she's trying her prosthetic nose out for the first time in front of the family. And she was in the middle of carving the Sunday joints at table. And lo and behold, her nose just shot straight off. And we all laughed. And really, in situations like that, it's no good being upset. It's just better to see the funny side. Things like that will happen.
And you were able to use that in your illness?
Yes, all the time.
Let's have a think about a viewer from the perspective of a new person watching this. Is there anything else you could say that you feel would be useful, given all your experiences?
I would say, for people with face cancer, it can be very daunting. I think one big thing to remember is that it doesn't change who you are. You're still the same person underneath. It can be difficult initially. Children, very young children, will find it very puzzling. They're curious. They'll stare. Just try not to let it bother you. Just accept that they're curious because they can see it's something different. But older adults, older children and adults, 99.9 times out of 100 are fantastic. They're very understanding. Occasionally you might get the person who is shocked purely and simply because it was not what they expected. They may have seen you in the past and just not been aware of what you've been through. But just accept that. Just accept that it will happen. But you're still the same person underneath.
I think with a cancer that's on display to others, like you said, a cancer of the head or the neck or the face, then there's an added dimension to it.
Yes.
Which is dealing with other people's reactions.
Yes.
Yes. And that, like you say, that can definitely be difficult at times.
Yes.
Have you ever come across a situation where people have responded negatively to you and that's upset you?
Well, there's one incident. The fact that it was a negative response was very unfortunate for the person concerned. I got into a lift. I use a scooter when I go into town.
Yeah.
And I've managed to negotiate my way into the lift. And a family with a young daughter of about maybe 7 or 8 got into the lift. The door shut, and as I turned my face her way, her eyes were more or less on a level with me, and she gasped, almost screamed. I felt very sorry for the poor child because she was just so shocked. She was so close to me and on my level. Her parents They simply ignored the whole thing, which under the circumstances I feel was the best thing to do. On other occasions, it just so happens in the same week, I was in a situation where there were some very young children, not just one, but several, and they spent a couple of hours coming round and having a look and being very puzzled and having a little bit of a joke about it. But as I say, it was just unfortunate all these incidents happened in 1 week, which at the time did get me down a little bit, but I soon bounced back. It will happen. People will be shocked occasionally. Another gentleman I know, he had no idea that I'd had another operation. And when he saw me, I could tell he was stunned, shocked. But the second time I saw him, he was fine. He'd grown used to the idea.
That is the key thing, which is, they call it desensitization, which is how long does it take somebody to get used to it? And it's partly how often they're seeing you.
Yes.
If they see you quite often, they'll get used to things very quickly.
Yes.
And very soon, particularly for family members, they often stop seeing the change. They start to see you again.
That's right.
Quite quickly. And
certainly with friends who see me on a regular basis, I'm a regular churchgoer and got plenty of friends, very supportive friends there. And they've seen me go through the various stages. I've still got a plate. It took 2 years of hard work, people to make for my specifications, with a lot of setbacks. And once it was made, I carried on wearing it, and when my husband was first taken into hospital, it was the first day I was about to visit him. I was just leaving the house when the plate dropped. I realised straight away that the magnet had gone.
The magnet, yes.
It had dropped out. And I had no choice but to take it out, the whole plate out, and do without for several months during the time of my husband's illness and for some time after. But the point I really wanted to make is that friends I've mentioned this to, although I haven't had using the plate for the last 6 months or so, hadn't noticed. They're so used to seeing me either with or without. It doesn't matter to them. I'm still the same person.
That's good to hear. They're focusing on you.
Yes.
Not necessarily your appearance.
That's right.
One slight, I would call it telltale, when people are more comfortable with their appearance is how often they're willing to go out. Because when you're self-conscious, a natural reaction is to isolate yourself a little bit. Did you ever have a stage like that?
No.
You were quite bold about going out and doing what you wanted to do.
I was determined to be.
You were determined.
I accepted the fact that nothing could change what had happened, and I wasn't going to be a hermit.
And I think that attitude and determinism pays off, really.
Yes. Yes. It certainly paid off in my case. And just stay positive. Be as positive as you can. You can't turn the clock back. You just have to move forward. And I'd say people are enormously helpful and very understanding, and especially when they see you making the effort.
They pick up on the fact that you're determined to do something.
Absolutely.
And they then can help more in some way.
Absolutely.
What does the future hold for you now?
Well, I'm just determined to try and get back to as normal a life as possible.
And you're definitely doing that.
Getting out every day, or most days, which I do. And going out for 2 meals. May not be quite the same as it used to be, but, you know, there are ways and means of getting around it. Taking up new hobbies. And just generally taking part in things that you can do. Focus on the things you can do. Don't focus on things that you used to do and can't do now.
These are all key messages, I think, for the viewers to see, and I'm taking a lot from what you said today, and I know a lot of people will agree with me when I say that you've done tremendously well, and I admire your fighting spirit to do well and your determinism. I think we could all take a leaf out of your book, no matter what our situation at the current time. So I wish you all the best for the future.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.